What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to review Scream 5 for its 1-year birthday. So 1 year ago, technically maybe last night, right? I think a lot of us saw the movie the night before, but I watched this movie on Thursday night, and I tried to take mental notes, and I will tell you flat out, I like this movie more, I think, than I liked it when I saw it. And I try to keep my viewings, really, I guess even specifically Scream. It's what we talk about so much on the channel. I try to keep them actually at a limit. I don't watch them as much as I think many other of the creators have, for better or worse. Maybe it's a worse thing, but I watched, this is my third time watching Scream 5. So not too many times. I was basing, my entire arguments around a lot of these characters based off of 2 times, I believe. And so let's get into it. So I do like it more. I still think there are some flaws that we'll talk about as we go on. But one thing I want to shockingly say, I mentioned Sam so often, and I don't think she is the greatest thing of all time in this film, but I do think she's better than I thought she was. It's been a long time since I've watched this movie, maybe like 10 or so months. I watched it when it came out and then a little bit after, and I do think I liked her more and more. Now, as we've always said, and I do agree with myself on this, she gets better as the movie goes on, and the ending specifically, really from when she, grabs the gun and everything kind of turns sideways onward, she is incredible. She's really, really good. I would say she does a serviceable job, throughout the rest of the movie, the first, say, 60-70% of it. I think she does fine, and maybe even better than fine. I don't know how many positives I could throw out, but I would just say she's a little bit better than I thought she was, and rewatching it, I guess. And I would say, honestly, a common theme with this film is everybody does do a really, really good job. The biggest, I guess, but maybe honestly the biggest issue this movie has is limited screen time. So I really do like Amber. I think Amber is a super cool character, specifically when she turns, but I even like her when she has the Mindy, talk in the basement. I think she's great. She's just not in the mood, and it's almost like you forget, because she is. She's here and there, but she makes absolutely no impact. So maybe I don't like the boring side of Amber, the coddling side, where she does with Tara and stuff. I don't really think that's powerful at all. But then once you focus in on her at Stu's house, and it has that shot. I believe it goes from, it's somewhere in the hospital, maybe them leaving the hospital or whatever, Sydney and Gail. And then the next shot, there's at one point, there's like a cut. And the next shot is Amber walking through the party. And in that moment, you just think, I haven't seen much of any of these people. And you think that actually with several of them. You think that with Mindy, you think that with Chad, you think that with Liv, and you think that with Amber, right? Wes is just not in, obviously being killed around the halfway point or maybe slightly before. You don't really have enough time, right, for that one. But those 4 specifically, you think, wow, we haven't really seen much of them at all. Now, comparing it to past movies, it's tough because you think about, even Randy, let's say, in the first movie, he's really not in it all that much. He's got maybe 7 or 8 scenes, I think people have kind of counted. But just watching this on its own, and that's what I tried to do, right? I didn't really want to compare it because honestly, I walked away from this film saying I really, really like this film. I do. I like it more than I ever have before. At the same time, then you think, okay, well, do I prefer it over a Scream 4? Do I prefer it over Scream 2? Once you start comparing them, then it starts to kind of break down. And honestly, for the purpose of this, I don't really want to compare it. I just want to kind of look at it on its own. But that is one of the fatal flaws of this movie, because I do think everybody does a really good job. I actually like Mason Gooding as Chad is actually very good. I like the comedy. I like the kind of, we've heard rumors that he's going to be the heart of Scream 6. I can understand that. I feel like he's got that potential. He is maybe the most underused character in the entire film. You think of Liv, but rewatching it, last night when I'm recording this video, less than 12 hours ago, I think, no, Liv is not the most, Liv, I actually think is extremely good. Liv obviously doesn't get a lot of scenes. She's in it in the beginning, and then she misses all of the hospital stuff. She appears at Mindy and Chad's house, and then you see her at the party, and that's it. So 3 different zones, let's say, just a couple scenes, but she knocks it out, and I stand by that. I really like Liv. I think she did a phenomenal job being her first acting gig, right? She did super good, specifically her and Mindy at the house when she like tries to really lean into that she could be the killer. Like I don't really necessarily know from a character point of view why she wanted to do that, but it came across great. So I think she was fantastic. Mindy is also really, really good, just in limited. Like her main thing is that monologue. And then there's like the iconicness of watching Jamie. Like there's that. But I would say beyond that, the only other thing she has is the monologue. And the monologue is phenomenal. I really like her explaining it. She's very energetic. She's got a lot of personality in it. She is good. Again, the issue is the limited time. So I feel probably better about Scream 6, even honestly, watching this, because you think to only the survivors here, right? Mindy and Chad in this case, they do have room to grow, and there's a good enough foundation. Yes, granted, just a few scenes. There's just a few scenes with each of them, but you can build on that. And Sam, I think there's plenty of room to build. And Tara, she's great. I mean, I know people say like she spends the whole movie in the hospital or the whole movie injured. I mean, that is true. I really like the opening. I've always liked it. I liked it from the trailer. I liked it from the first time I saw the movie. I think the opening is phenomenal, and it's the best recreation you could try to do to mimic Scream 1. And a lot of that is Tara / Jenna Ortega in this case, and a lot of it is Roger L. Jackson, which is another point I remember specifically saying in my original review, and I do want to echo it here. He is incredible. He, as you normally do in these Scream movies, he's not in it all that much, right? His voice isn't in it all that much, and there's long gaps between phone calls, but when he's on, he is one of the better, like 4 is very... They really went for like the brutalness of him. He sounds slightly different in 4. He also is just a lot more like brutal. This one, he's more like charming. It's more of a game. It's more of a cat and mouse thing, really, in a lot of the phone calls that he does. And that was kind of the point of the first movie. So please stick with this version of him, because I just think from the writing of his lines to obviously his delivery, the Tara thing is awesome. I love his back and forth. The Judy call, I think, is awesome. The Sydney call is... It's definitely weird. You had to, I think, insert that so you could get the "Hello, Sydney," in there. But was it really necessary? And it kind of gave Richie away, like if it didn't already, at that time. But overall, Roger's voice was fantastic. And I will say, while watching this movie, I was thinking, some of the best parts of this are the legacy characters. Like we talk about Gale and Dewey, and we talk about Sydney, I guess, a little. I actually really like all the scenes from every single one of those characters, all 3 of the originals. And it's probably a biasness, right? But I think they kind of elevate. They elevate everything once they're on screen. So anytime Dewey's on screen, my attention is like more there. My attention's there when they're not on screen, but at least in the original time watching it, it's more like analytical. Like, all right, we got to like start to figure, because there's no concern that Dewey's the killer or Sydney or anything like that, right? So you're just kind of enjoying that and just taking it all in. When Amber's on, when they're at the hospital and they're explaining Billy and all this stuff, you're trying to like pick it apart, right? You're trying to figure it out. And so it's a different kind of viewing experience, I guess, when both are on. But I will say I felt that the legacy characters have the best scenes. At the same time, I really appreciate the beginning. I think the beginning is awesome. I like, to some extent, the Wes and Judy stuff, using kind of like tension and then taking it away and then using it and taking it away with Wes like 4 times, which maybe was a little bit too much. And then at the ending, the third act, I thought was, and really the house party, a lot of it is driven from the new people. It's driven from Richie and Amber, I guess, primarily. And then you have people like Liv that I think really, really show off like her talent level, right? Like the ending, the last 20, 30 minutes of the movie is in large carried by them, not necessarily even Gale and Sydney, although they are, again, I think really, really good in their parts. One thing I do want to say that kind of breaks down, and I was thinking about this yesterday, I do like the third act. I think I've talked about it before. Like I don't know, every one of these movies has incredible third acts. Even like Scream 3, which I talked about, it is my least favorite. It just is, right? Scream 3 is at the bottom of my list. Its third act is phenomenal, and the Roman Sydney back and forth is maybe the second best behind Billy and Stu, in my opinion. So it's actually hard to rank them, because even the movies that I think lesser, or people talk about Scream 4, I do love Scream 4 probably more than what I've seen other people say. I love the ending of Scream 4. I love Jill and that whole setup kind of thing, her monologue. So they always have great endings. or I guess great third acts. This one is no different. It's hard to compare or say like where it would rank, but one thing that I found an issue with is you're at Stu's house, and because there's so many people still left, like if you think about it, when Richie and Tara and Sam come to, get the inhaler, and then everybody leaves. Well, there's still people there. Like, there's still a good amount of cast left. You got Liv, who, like, disappears, and her phone gets stolen. Like, all of this different stuff is happening to Liv off screen. None of it you see, which is kind of annoying. Then you got Mindy, who's just, like, sitting there. And time moves very weird in that final moments. And that, I think, is very off-putting to me from looking at it very, like, analytical, because I do want to talk about the whodunit, aspect of this film. And I do actually think it's one of the weaker elements of the film. I actually think the Billy, bloodline, I think Sam's character, like, struggling, and her at the end, going full nuts on Richie. I think a lot of this movie is extremely, extremely good. The kills, I think, are way too fast, and they're not, again, the chase scenes really are missed. But I would say one of the biggest negatives, specifically, I would say with a third act, is a non-care for time and placement. And I think Scream 4 had pretty similar issues. I have to go, I just watched Scream 2. I watched Scream 1 too many times. Scream 3 I haven't watched too much. But I just feel like this movie, maybe more than any, and Scream 4 is probably second most, suffers from, they don't pay attention to, like, when are things happening, where are these characters going, and, like, the placement of them. Richie goes into the basement, and he's seemingly there forever, but it's because, obviously he comes in as Ghostface, but the timing is weird. Where are you supposed to, as an audience, are you supposed to believe that Richie went down to the basement, and as he went down, that's when Ghostface came out? Because there's a lot of time skips, and even the movie itself that Mindy is watching, I guess actually it doesn't skip too much time, so maybe that's a better indication that it's all happening during the Randy monologue in Scream 1 or Stab. It's all happening in maybe like a 5-minute span, but it doesn't make it feel like that. Amber and Tara are gone for seemingly like forever. Again, Liv disappears. The whole thing with Chad happens, and Liv comes back. There's just a blatant disregard, and that's the lead up. Then you have when everything starts to go down. So Amber shoots Liv. Richie and Sam leave and go into the basement, and in that time, Amber ties up Tara extremely quickly and then goes outside, coincidentally the exact time that, Gale and Sydney come. And then when that happens and Amber retreats back, you have kind of like a switching between now Richie is on the phone with Sydney, and then Sam is upstairs in the house, and she's like terrified. But, like, where are all these things? Like, you know what I mean? I'm actually, like, trying to play out the entire film. She finds Tara. Tara's tied up and all this. And then Tara, like, stays there the whole time. Because Tara is MIA from the time she gets untied by Sam to the time that she whacks, Amber with the crutch. She's missing for, like, and however long that is. But it's decently long because you have the Sydney thing, and then you have quite a long monologue and explanation. People are getting stabbed, like her sister, and then Sydney gets stabbed. Like, there's so much going on. And where is Tara? Is it a mansion? I mean, like, it's a big house, but it's not that big, and you don't get lost in. It's odd. Oh, and also Amber lives there, so it's not like you would actually get lost. Tara, I'm sure, has been there multiple times. You know what I mean? So it's very odd, and I don't like it. Because it really, I think it forces you to assume that at least Richie has to be the killer, early on. And then you think about who's attacking, like Chad and stuff like that, and you think, well, it's either Liv or Amber. I would say, I said this back when it came out, and I think I would still hold this, like, they did do a decent enough job considering the limited time that both Amber and Liv got leading up to the reveal. I think they did a decent enough job where it could have been either of them. I think all of us, but here's the thing, that's where the trailer ruined it, right? Because you literally see Amber on fire, and it's like, well, why isn't Liv on fire? Why is it, however you want to think about it. So I guess if that didn't happen, it would have been more of a 50-50 split. I want it to be Liv. Just so it wasn't Amber. And I really wanted to not be Richie because it's kind of obvious at a certain point that it has to be Richie. And even then, obviously, you go back, and there's some cool, subtle things. Definitely them in the hospital room when they're talking to each other briefly. You can tell there's something there. When Amber gets shot multiple times by Dewey, Richie is constantly, like, looking at her, almost, like, saddened, right? So it's like, okay, it's pretty clear. Again, at least it's him. I mean, from the Dewey thing on, it really does make you believe that it's him. And again, we all kind of have that thought. Now, I like the line of like, I know it's a bummer, it's me. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of like a fan response. Like, I kind of like that line. It's very meta. It's very kind of like understanding of what we would think. And again, the reason I bring this up or spend so much time talking about it is that one of the biggest aspects of these films are the whodunit nature. And so how I would probably overall say, watching it a third time, watching it, almost a year, again, I mean, give or take several months, but almost a year after, I've seen it last, I think individually, if you take it kind of like scene by scene by scene, this movie is extremely good, or at least I extremely like it. It's a subjective opinion. It's just what I think. But when you think about like the whodunit thing, I do think there were kind of fatal flaws in this film. From they force you to either really time jumping, and we talk about time jumping. We've mentioned the hospital before. That stuff's just a joke. I guess like Judy's ordering sushi, and so you assume it's dinner time. And you assume if we're talking about like the winter time, which maybe it is, like it's fall, it gets dark early, right? So maybe there's a reason why Sam and Dewey get in the car. It's daylight. It very clearly is daylight. And then they're driving to the hospital that I can't imagine is too far because Woodsboro seems pretty secluded and small. And so I can't imagine the hospital being like 2 hours away. And then it's pitch black. It's pitch black out. And also, what I don't even think I realized this until literally this time watching it. So the whole thing at night with Dewey happens. The next day, or whatever ends up happening, Gail shows up, right? And then so Sydney comes, and you imagine there has been some time that has been skipped. And again, they don't do a great job of kind of illustrating that to you, so you assume some time's been skipped. Sam goes to visit Tara in her room, and they talk about leaving. And then as they leave, it's pitch black. So I guess they stayed in the hospital the entire day, right? Dewey died at night. Gail came in the morning. Sydney came maybe midday. And then they leave, Sam and Tara and Richie, they leave at night. So they spend an entire day in the hospital, which is also enough time for the rest of the gang to throw a memorial for Wes. And I didn't really... Like, again, I get what you're doing there for Wes. I understand that. I think that's one of the dumbest things that's been done in these movies. Just for the believability. Like, there's so much focus on Sam and Richie. There's so much focus on them. And I guess you kind of have to do it. I guess you didn't have to give Richie as much, though, considering he's the killer. I get Sam because new final girl, you really have to build her up. You really have to basically give her the most screen time. You do. But it comes at a negative, and I love Richie. I think Jack Quaid did phenomenal. He's one of the best in terms of talent level for acting, he's one of the best, including maybe even over the OGs in this entire film. He is phenomenal, okay? And I didn't want him to be the killer just because I kind of want him to survive to see him, longer in the future. But when you spend so much time on those two characters, you leave everybody else. Tara is not really in the movie. She's got amazing scenes. Every time she's in the movie, it is really, really good, and the focus is on her. But beyond that, she's not in it. And, again, Mindy has her moment, but then she has literally nothing else. Chad doesn't have absolutely anything. Liv actually really does have her moments. Again, that's why Liv is better than Chad, because Liv actually has some pretty sizable moments in this film. Chad has absolutely zero. I think there's something you could build off of, but keeping him alive also, I didn't really even need that to happen. I would say that. So again, it comes at a detriment, though, to Amber. It comes at a detriment to people like Liv or Wes, again, not really making it too far, so it's hard to talk about him, right? So looking at every single scene individually, I think there's so much to like, because I think overall it is extremely well acted from top to bottom. There, maybe some are a little bit weaker than others, but again, I'll give Melissa Barrera more credit. I'll put her a little bit higher, where she's not kind of the odd man out. I actually don't think she is at all. And I think David Arquette, Dewey, I think he was phenomenal acting-wise in terms of this movie. Not a huge fan of making him a drunk who left Gail in the middle of the night. That's not Dewey. I kind of gave them a pass originally. I would like to not give them a pass anymore. I don't love that. It's the common thing. It's the Luke Skywalker thing. Let's just kind of like make the character that you love that's kind of very heroic. Let's just make them like a loser. That's really which is annoying that you have to do that to them, but it is what it is. So looking at it, every single scene, I think there's a lot to like, from the acting to the mystery in the moment, the mystery. But then when you kind of look at the whole thing, you say, I mean, the pacing and the ending with the timing and placement of characters, it's a little all over the place. So in some regards, it's one of the more tightly, well-acted, well-scripted Scream movies of the entire group. Like, in some ways, it is that. And then in other ways, it like lazy almost. One of the more lazy, like forgetful kind of. Not, I guess forgetful. I'm not necessarily saying like people watching it forgetful. I'm saying like they kind of forget what they're supposed to be doing in the movie. You know what I mean? In terms of like the filmmakers. So it's a very weird, a weird film. But I enjoy it. I mean, I'm really happy I rewatched it. I liked it throughout it. I was in. I don't. Sometimes I go on my phone. When I'm watching TV shows or even playing games. I'll pause it every so often. Gotta check Twitter. But for this movie, like, I'm locked in. I was locked in, trying to kind of analyze, but also not even just like, yes, I did like super analyze several scenes. I wanted to remind myself of the age gap between Sam and Tara, and also their age in the movie. Sam is 23, Tara is 18, which also makes Amber 18, and it makes Richie like 23. So was there a little underage thing going on if they met when she was 17? Just want to kind of throw that out there, that I don't know if they thought that through very hard. But, so I was analyzing. I was trying to pick out certain things, maybe things I missed the first 2 times. But also, I really was just trying to enjoy the film. And I do enjoy it. I do generally enjoy this film. I think I said that kind of in the beginning, or the first review I did of this, is that if you're just watching it to, have fun, watch a Scream movie, you're not trying to like analyze every little thing, I think it's extremely good. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you want to buy those Ghostface cups for my wife's Etsy store, link is always in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.